I'm Councillor Alison Everson, President of COSLA, and I welcome you all today to this international local government event. We are delighted to open our event today and to be our first speaker, Mr. Michael Matheson, MSP, who is a Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero, Energy and Transport. And I'm going to pass over to Michael now to start our event and speak to us all this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alison. It's a pleasure to join you here this morning to discuss the important role that all spheres of government can play in helping to support us in tackling both climate change and nature loss. I'm very conscious that prior to COP26, we often heard that COP26 was our best, if not our last chance to avert the climate crisis that we face in the years ahead, and for all spheres of government to play their part in helping to tackle that. And alongside that, during the course of the World Leaders Summit last week, we heard about how the next decade is a decisive decade. It must be the decade of delivery and taking forward the actions which are critical to averting the climate crisis which we face. The reality is that the vast majority of the actions which will be required in order to tackle climate change are actions that need to be taken forward at a local level. It's very easy well, it's not easy, it's probably an unfair way of putting it, for governments to sign international treaties at a state level to commit to achieving certain targets is important, but the critical thing is the delivery of those targets and the measures that will achieve the outcome that was intended at an international level. And the vast majority of the decision making in these matters and the actions which will be necessary are actions and decision making which must be taken forward at a local level. I want to maybe give you a couple of practical illustrations of this. But before I do that, I want to try and clarify what is often a language I've heard over the course of the last 2 weeks here at COP, where we often talk about subnational governments or different spheres of government playing their role in tackling climate change. I thought it was summed up very well by the Secretary for the Natural Environment from California in saying what we don't need is some sort of subnational approach to things. What we require is a supranational approach to tackling climate change, that all spheres of government play their role in helping to avert it, and that we ensure that our international discussions is that all spheres of government are recognised as being critical to achieving the right type of outcome. And a very good practical example of that was over the course of the last 5 or so years in the United States, when the previous US administration withdrew from the Paris Agreement. But the reality is it was a number of state governments that continued to keep the light on by tackling climate change through their own actions and going against what the Trump administration was supportive of at that particular time. Particular states such as California and New York and Oklahoma, who continue to push forward by taking forward local policies to tackle climate change. Another thing I think is critical in making sure we get the balance of decision making right in these issues and in driving forward policy at a local level right is because we need to also deliver a fair and just transition. Becoming a net zero society is not an end in itself. It is a journey which we are on, and it's a journey which we need to collaborate and cooperate on. And that involves every sphere of government playing their role in helping to support us in achieving that. And if we are to deliver a just and fair transition, it is absolutely critical, if not essential, to the delivery of our climate change ambitions to ensure that decisions are taken at as local a level as possible. One of the things that I feel during the course of discussions that I have within the Scottish Government and with partners in COSLA and others is that we need to make sure that decision making on tackling climate change has a relevance to people individually and to their local communities, which is why we need to empower local communities to be able to take forward the right things that they can do to contribute towards tackling climate change. And that means ensuring that decisions are made at the right level to enable communities to take forward programs that reflect their needs and their aspirations. So the measures which we will take here in somewhere like the city of Glasgow are not necessarily relevant to the approach we will take in my constituency, my local authority area in Falkirk Council, or the approach that we take in Edinburgh City Council isn't necessarily the approach that should be taken in Highland Council that represents a significantly rural area, or the approach that we will take in our island communities who have a very distinctive set of needs and ambitions. So we need to make sure that we don't get so focused on the idea of becoming a net zero nation that it means that every part of government, or that every layer of government or every sphere of government has to take the same approach. It must be informed by local need and local aspiration. And it must be reflect the needs of those local communities. And I think that's one of the big challenges which we face going forward in tackling climate change, is to make sure that the right decisions are made at the right level and that we empower people to feel part of that journey. The last thing that any transition to becoming a net zero society should be about is it being a top-down approach from national government to local government, or from local government to local communities. If we are to deliver the type of systemic, sustained change that we want to see in tackling climate change, then it must be one which is informed by the bottom up, by individuals and communities driving the change that they see as being sustainable within their local area. So, in drawing my remarks to a close, one of the challenges I think we face, not just here in Scotland, but globally, is how we ensure that in this decisive decade of delivery, and in making sure that we remain committed to a just and fair transition, how we get that decision making right. I don't believe we have it right here in Scotland, and I don't know whether there are any countries in the world that would claim to have it right, but we need to remain alive to change in the way in which we are doing things in order to try and adapt to emerging issues. And I'm very keen, having only been in this post for a few months, to work with my counterparts, Alison, and our colleagues at COSLA, and all of our other spheres of government and also non-government actors in Scotland in playing their part in supporting us in our transition to becoming a net zero nation by 2045. And the one final point I want to make on this is that we have to make sure the decisions we make here in Scotland, and at whatever level we make them, is that we're also mindful of the impact they have on other parts of the world, and in particular in the global south. How we can help to support the transition here in Scotland to be fair and just, but also to be fair and just in more in countries which are being more impacted by climate change on an ongoing basis, but having contributed very little to creating climate change in the first place. And we need to make sure that all spheres of government in Scotland and beyond are playing their part in helping to support us in achieving that. So making sure decisions are made at the right level and in the way in which they are connected to local communities and individuals, but also with an eye to the global impact of our decision making and how we can help to support the global south in their transition to becoming net zero nations as well. So I'll hand over to Alison, and I wish you well with the rest of the event, but I hope that in the years ahead, we will see decision making and action taking place at the right level in delivering a fair and just transition for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I really welcome those words talking about the role of all the spheres of government working together in partnership and collaboration and working together with empowered local communities as well to really make that difference. I think that's the recipe for making the advances that we need to make in this crucial issue that we're talking about. So thank you very much for those comments. I've welcomed Michael Matheson this morning, but now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you too, mayors and councillors from Europe and the rest of the world. Many of you already partners and friends, and many of you, I hope, will also become partners and friends. As the host country for Local Government Association of COP26, we warmly welcome you all to Glasgow. And I'm also particularly keen to greet all those who are joining us remotely from all over the world for this today COP26 Cities, Regions and Built Environment Day. With the examples set in Madrid, in Bonn, in Marrakesh and all the way back to Copenhagen, it is customary that the local authority associations of the host country welcome our peers from our pan-European body, CMR, and our worldwide association, UCLG. So welcome to you particularly. Of course, COP26 is happening in Glasgow, but its impact is being felt across communities, across Scotland, and across the rest of the UK. Therefore, COSLA is hosting this event with our sister organisations from England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the LGA, NILGA, and the Welsh LGA. And I thank them for their support in organising this event too. We could not have done this event here in the Blue Zone Multilevel Pavilion without the active support also of the Scottish Government, our friends at ICLE, and of course, Glasgow City Council, whose deputy leader will intervene at the close of this event. We are pleased to welcome mayors and local leaders from places as far as Argentina, Finland, Hungary, and France. We of course regret that more international speakers from Africa, Asia could not join us in the end, but we appreciate, of course, their travel logistics during pandemic time. Still, we hope that some will be able to join us online. And furthermore, the UCLG is organising a range of virtual sessions where we can join no matter where we are. Our aim, of course, is an inclusive COP. We are gathered to highlight that delivering climate ambition, delivering net zero needs partnership working across international, central, devolved and local governments, all the spheres of government working together. And COP26 Glasgow provides a unique opportunity to showcase the high ambition and the extensive sustainability and net zero work of local governments worldwide. Local government in Scotland supports an ambitious approach to tackling climate change and the national net zero emissions target set for 2045. We are working extensively to decarbonise the local estate and combat climate change by pioneering sustainable public services. Many councils have made significant investments to go beyond national targets and deliver carbon neutrality by 2030. Whether in pioneering wind, tidal or hydrogen energy, leading energy efficiency and renovation programmes, or increasing local resilience, Scotland's local authorities have a proven track record when it comes to addressing climate change. Scotland and its local authorities aim to be world leading in climate and energy legislation, in policy and in practice. COSLA has been long engaged in the international process for climate change, attending various COPs, including COP21, where the Paris Agreement was signed. But there is still need to recognise local government as more than just a stakeholder. What we do in our local areas can reverberate internationally and be the difference we all seek. We are central to local effective climate action and the sphere of governance able to work collaboratively across society with local community support. We can be the difference we seek. The UN Paris Agreement does currently contain a reference to local governments in its preamble. But COSLA and all the organisations present here today are part of the COP26 local government and municipal authorities constituency. For the last 2 years, we have been working together to call for a stronger reference for subnational governments in the official conclusions of this summit due to end tomorrow. This will give the political signal that local governments all over the world, particularly those countries where local government has less resources, but where often the greatest impact of negative climate change is felt, they all have a key role in delivering the outcomes we seek. This is important as 5 years on since Paris, it now comes down to implementation. For Scotland and the world to meet its ambitious carbon reduction targets, local government needs to be a key partner in climate change dialogue and plans for change. We have so much to offer as local leaders, providers of a wide range of key services, and a political body with a democratic mandate derived from local communities. We will continue to strongly make this case throughout the remainder of this summit and at future COPs. The success of Paris and of Glasgow will depend on action and implementation. And therefore inclusion for local governments in international climate agreements and their subsequent national climate plans is not just important democratically, but is an essential mechanism for multi-level collaboration and delivery of climate change ambition. We need to continue work to increase visibility of local governments together with communities in global frameworks and targets. We also have opportunity to make collaboration both at home and abroad a key part of how we do business and a clear outcome of COP26 for Scottish local government. We must take this opportunity. We must in future continue to look at new ways for EU and international cooperation. Across local government, we recognise global warming as a significant threat to peaceful and prosperous life for our communities. But we value the opportunity to work with others to build on a wide range of innovative work streams with multiple economic, social and health benefits to citizens. I'm sure that my friend and my counterpart from the LGA, Councillor James Jameson, who will speak next, will join me, as all of you will, in congratulating Glasgow City Council, Scottish Government and the UK COP26 presidency for making COP26 so far a success in such difficult circumstances. Thank you very much for your attention today, and I pass over now to the Chair of the LGA, Councillor James Jameson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you to the other speakers. It's not going to be surprising, given who we have here, is that we're really going to emphasize the importance that in climate change, if we're going to get it right, we need to do it from a local level. And that means that any decisions need to be on a subnational basis. And I think that's the key point. But before I talk about that, for those of you who are more international than me, can I just explain who the LGA is? LGA is the Local Government Association for England and Wales. It represents virtually all councils in England and Wales, some 330 councils. I'm the chairman. I have been chairman for a couple of years, and I was previously leader of Central Bedfordshire. For those of you who don't know it, it's about 30 miles north of London, and it is one of the best councils in the country. Not that I'm biased. Anyway, to go on, you know, we have a climate emergency. I think we all accept that, and the argument has been won. The problem now is, what is the solution on that? And what's the Local Government Association doing for that? And I think, as been alluded to by both the previous speakers, there are so many different things being done by so many different people, and we can all learn from each other. And I'm a great person for plagiarizing. We should never try and reinvent the wheel if we can just copy our neighbor. And the Local Government Association has a huge role in sharing best practice and helping every council in the country do the best that they can. So we have developed a Pass the Planet initiative, which essentially is a web-based mechanism of sharing case studies and best practices on climate change. We have an improvement program, and that is specifically designed where councillors and officers actually go and help our neighbours, our fellow councils, to improve their actions on climate change. We've set up a climate emergency task force, and Councillor Izzy Seacombe is in the audience, who is a co-chair of that. Again, very successful, talking about what is it that we in local government can do, and what is it that we in local government need from governments and from other partners. And we've also set up the Net Zero Innovation Package. We have set up a Net Zero Innovation Package, which is basically a partnership between 13 councils and 13 universities to look at best practice, what innovation technology, and we're seeking to expand that. And I was very pleased to hear yesterday that in the competition, we got highly commended. We just got pipped by the post, but really pleased that that has been recognized. And why are councils so important or subnational? So if you look at CO2 emissions and climate change, the OECD reckons that in approximate terms, a third of the initiatives that can be done to reduce climate change can be done at the national level. So the classic banning coal-fired power, etc. Around about a third is actually best placed done at the local level. So all those local initiatives that we do, and around a third is a mixture of national and subnational. So the only way we're going to get to zero quickly is if the proper voice and the proper role of subnational governments are taken account of. And I'm just going to give a few examples of the things that we're doing across the UK. And I'm going to pick certain councils and tell you about some of the things they're doing. Just to note, it's not the only thing they're doing. They're doing lots more than this. But anyway, some of you who were at the reception last night would have heard from Wiltshire, who have already as a council reduced their carbon emissions by 80%. And they are building council homes that are already carbon zero. And I think the interesting statistic that came from that is they're saying that only costs 4% more than building a standard home. So it isn't a huge barrier for new homes. If you look at Swindon, and I'm glad to see David is in the audience, the leader of Swindon, you know, they are investing in solar farms and many other initiatives there. We've got South Cambridgeshire, and again, we have the leader of South Cambridgeshire in the audience, who is doing a lot of things, you know, including converting all their vehicles to electric vehicles, putting in charging points. Warwickshire, I am picking on people in the audience. So Izzy has set up a £1 million community fund to actually promote it with community activists and the community to say, have you got a good idea? We will help fund it. So, you know, very much let that 1,000 flowers bloom argument. Similarly, if we go to Derbyshire, slightly different angle, they've set up a £2 million entrepreneurs fund. And that's all about partnering with local, smaller and medium-sized businesses to say, what is your initiative? What can you do? And can we help you do it? And again, then be able to share that best practice. In Newcastle, really interesting, they've set up a partnership between the council, the university and the local hospitals, and they have a joint plan to reach zero carbon by 2040, not a single person plan. And we're all worried about plastics and what do we do with plastics when we've no longer got a use for them. So Cumbria Council has got an initiative to actually use them as part of the resurfacing of roads. So I just say a few examples, but if you just think about that, how do we share those examples? And we can all do them everywhere, and delighted if we can share on an international basis. And it's great to be here today to do that. Now, the key part of that, and I'm going to ask you to do something, and it was the same I asked yesterday, all of you who are related to any international delegation, please, can you make sure that in the final proclamation from this COP26, the role of subnational is recognized? It is really critical. Please do that. And also, it's reflected in the nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, as well. I've done that bit. We've talked about multi-levels and partnerships, so I won't repeat that. So just in conclusion, can I say thank you? I'd also like to thank Glasgow and Scotland. This has been a great COP26. I have been surprised in the positive. I was expecting great things and it's actually been better. It's been tremendous to meet with all the international organizations here and my fellow councils across the world. Look forward to meeting to you again when we're closer to zero carbon. So thank you very much and pleased to be part of this session. Alison.
Thank you very much, James. We're going to have a change of speakers now, so a couple of minutes while we leave the stage and other speakers come up instead, including Robert Burgess, Councillor Robert Burgess from Nilja. So thank you very much, and we'll just have a change of speakers. Thank you.
Hi, John.
I don't know. Thomas is here as well. Yeah, he's coming. Yes, yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Hello? Okay, we're moving into a short panel session where we're going to allow the local and regional leaders to set the context, set their context in reference to this session. Yeah. But before that, I'd just like to introduce Councillor Robert Burgess, the president of the NILGA, who I believe has a video to present. So if I can ask for the video to roll at this point.
Northern Ireland is a small region of the UK with 11 district councils responsible for a limited number of functions. These councils have proven to be leaders on climate action, working creatively together to begin to address our main existential challenge. For the next few minutes, our councils are going to take you on a journey to show you how they have embarked on the road to zero. We begin in Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon, where the council is extremely proud of its catchment care project, focused on improving freshwater quality in the Nae, Ban and other cross-border river catchments. Our 5 border councils work very closely with colleagues in the Republic of Ireland to address common environmental concerns, often with the invaluable support of the European Union. Mid-Ulster District Council have used their engineering and biodiversity expertise to close and repurpose their local landfill sites. 3 former landfill sites have been transformed by Mid-Ulster District Council, with over 33,000 trees now planted across 16 acres and over 2 acres of wetlands, providing excellent natural habitats, turning places from waste into
Good morning, colleagues. As President of Northern Ireland's Local Government Association, I am delighted to be here today with you. NILGA was formed 20 years ago this year as an outworking of the Good Friday Agreement in what was a very difficult political environment at the time. Since then, we have worked on an all-council and all-party basis to further the interests of local government in Northern Ireland. Our collegiate way of working has been of great benefit as we have faced the challenges of climate change without local legislation, with scant resources, but with great dedication. So I would like to ask my colleagues on the stage to come down and join me in the audience for a few minutes as I invite you all to join Northern Ireland's local government on the race to zero. So I'd like us to play the video now at this minute in time. So thank you for the invite. Thank you one and all.
District Council now, an area famous for its lakelands, with peatlands vital to everyone on the planet as carbon sinks. Fermanagh and Omagh have been doing some globally significant work in terms of peatland restoration, including on Creelka Mountain, which forms part of a UNESCO geopark, providing sustainable tourism in the area. In neighbouring council Derry City and Strabane, severe weather events in recent years prompted the council to take a lead in developing a climate action toolkit. Using EU resources, the council was instrumental in developing the NI Adapts toolkit. Supported by Climate Northern Ireland, the local government climate action network enables councils to share ideas and solutions to common issues as they develop their climate action plans. Derry and Strabane are also leading the way in terms of green and blue infrastructure. Next door in Causeway Coast and Glens, famous for beautiful blue flag beaches and their UNESCO World Heritage Site, the council is supportive of developing ideas for a hydrogen-powered ferry to Rathlin Island. Reducing the amount of marine plastic washed up on our shores is a priority for this coastal council to maintain the pristine beaches all along our north coast. Environmental enhancement, including the public realm, is a key priority for our councils, and the communities in Mid and East Antrim are really making the most of their love for gardening. This council area is a national leader in the Britain in Bloom scheme, but there is much more to In Bloom than flower planting schemes, with a growing focus on biodiversity and sustainability. The Ecos Nature Park in Ballymena is a great example of their efforts to enhance biodiversity while providing an excellent place for people to relax, socialise and of course do a bit of cultivation and conservation. The park is an oasis of wildlife close to the heart of Ballymena town centre, with a walking trail around parkland that includes maturing woodland, meadows, a lake and ponds. The park is home to rare plants, butterflies, is a breeding spot for birds and even provides a home for a family of otters. Neighbouring Antrim and Newtonabbey have been incredibly active in developing heritage buildings in their district. From the renovation and restoration of the beautiful Clotworthy House and Gardens in Antrim to the repurposing of the former flax mill at Mossley, Antrim and Newtonabbey are making the most of their heritage assets. The council is also an active travel champion, providing walking and cycle infrastructure and encouraging public transport use across the district. The biggest council area in Northern Ireland is Belfast City Council. Belfast, through its Climate Commission, works with partner cities within the Place-Based Climate Action Network, taking forward the city's resilience strategy. Exposed to flooding risks from rising sea levels and severe weather, focus has been on development of key preventative infrastructure. Belfast is particularly well placed to develop active travel infrastructure with a public bike hire network and a growing number of service hubs, complementing a burgeoning greenway provision and public transport network. The Lord Mayor is using a refurbished bike provided by a local social enterprise, and the official mayoral vehicle is now electric rather than diesel. Ards and North Down have really embraced their coastal location. They have focused on the development of green tourism in the area. They have created a recycling community investment fund as a thank you to residents for their recycling efforts, and this funding has been used to support a range of projects including Citizen Sea, Northern Ireland's first boat-based environmental charity, who use their vessel Seabird as a way to inspire local people and visitors to create healthier seas and coastal communities now and in the future. And their mayor is clearly on board. Newry, Mourne and Down District Council is the lead partner in the CAN project, or Collaborative Action for the Natura Network. This is a cross-border, multi-agency environment project which aims to improve the condition of protected habitats and to support priority species found within Northern Ireland, the border region of Ireland and Scotland, and ensuring the future of these internationally important habitats and species. The success of our boglands is vital globally in terms of carbon sequestration and decarbonisation. With EU funding, the CAN team are responsible for producing conservation action plans for a range of sites across the project area. Direct conservation actions are being carried out on 3,650 hectares of these special areas, all with an aim to ensure the habitats and species found at these sites have favourable conservation status, supported through educational and outreach programmes. Another important council-led collaborative project is Beelicious. Bees are critical for our own survival as a species, with 1 out of every 3 mouthfuls of our food depending on pollination taking place. After the publication of the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan in 2015, a partnership of 8 councils across Northern Ireland came together with support from the Heritage Lottery Fund to work with local communities to restore native flower-rich habitats where pollinators can find food and shelter. The Beelicious project is raising awareness, monitoring pollinator numbers, educating children, improving habitats, planting orchards and sowing wildflower meadows in council areas right across Northern Ireland. With local apple production alone completely reliant on pollinators, the value of the work our councils are doing cannot be overestimated. Thank you for joining Northern Ireland Local Government on its collaborative road to zero. You have seen and heard examples of what has been achieved so far, with minimal resources and in the absence of local legislation. We hope that by sharing, we're giving you some inspiration and ideas. The councils in Northern Ireland will be working together for our planet for many years to come, as we play our part in helping the UK to achieve net zero by 2050.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Burgess, for that presentation. I'd like to introduce the speakers for the next session. They were local and regional leaders. I'd like to introduce, first of all, Mr. Ronan Dontek, who's a Senator of France from the city of Nantes, and also the CEMR climate spokesperson. I'd like to introduce Councillor Kata Tuto, the Vice Mayor of Budapest, and also representing the Committee of the Regions. And I'd like to introduce Elisa Pereira Nunes, who is the Vice Mayor of Tours and also the President of the thematic group Gender from Cities Unis France. So I'll not prolong the introductions any further. I'll go directly to the speakers and I asked Mr. Dontek to speak first. I must apologise also to the speakers. I can only allow you 3 minutes for your presentations before we go to questions.
Thank you very much. I recognize a lot of friends in this room. 3 minutes, it's very short. Maybe just 2 messages as spokesperson of CMR. First message, and you have this result in the next report of climate change with an NGO who tried to analyze the concrete action of the different non-state actors and the local government. In Europe, between 2023 and 2017, the member of the Covenant of Mayors. The members of the Covenant of Mayors in Europe, it's around 15% of inhabitants in Europe. The cities, the territories of Covenant of Mayors decreasing the emission of Europe during this period around 28%. 28% of the decreasing of emission in Europe between 2023 and 2017, it's the action of local government. Clearly, it's my first message, it's impossible to reach the targets in Europe to decrease CO2 emission around 55% in 2030 if we have not the mobilization of the local government. It's absolutely clear. It's simple to understand because a large part of CO2 emission are ending with our daily life, and who has the capacity to change daily life? It's local elected people, it's local and subnational government. It's very clear. First message. Second message is the 3 minutes. A very, very simple message. We need money. If we have no new incomes, new resources, it's impossible to enforce our action. I take just one example. In France, in our scenario today, we need to retrofit around 800,000 buildings every year. And it's not possible if we have not the mobilization of local government, but it's not possible if we have not new tools, new financial tools. We need maybe not so subsidies. We accept subsidies, no problem. But we need more maybe loans, long terms, loans with interest rate around 0. And if we have these tools, we can accelerate it, and we can participate more to the objective to decrease CO2 emission around 50–55% in 2030, and of course the net zero in 2050. 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very impressive use of exactly 3 minutes. I'd like to move to our next speaker, please. Sorry, I'm being besieged by echoes of my own voice. I'd like to move to our next speaker, Councillor Kata Tuto, the Vice Mayor of Budapest. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank our Scottish counterparts for giving so much help in this. Coming from the Committee of the Regions and being Deputy Mayor of Budapest, Committee of the Regions, we say we are the voice of the cities in the European Union. What we do is we look at European legislation, and because the implementation most of the time is up to us, even when it comes to climate and energy goals, mitigation, adaptation, a lot of people were talking about it. We are doing most of it, especially when it comes to adaptation. So what we do is we say what we can do, how, and what we can do better. So when we are looking at gaps, target gaps, delivery gaps, it's really good to look at cities. It's really good to look at the local level, because there are great examples. When we see something is impossible, I would just have one example from not transport, not energy, on waste, circular economy. We were asking the question that, is it possible to leap from landfilling to recycling without burning waste? That was the big question. A lot of states said, no, that's impossible. But we've seen great examples from cities where within like 8 or 10 years, they could change from like 50% landfilling to 85% recycling without any burning waste, which having always a multiplying effect, because all those citizens who were brought in recycling, in better decision in consuming, they make better decisions in consuming energy, in consuming water, in their mobility choices. So bringing citizens in and saying on a national level something is impossible, look at the local level and they will find solutions. But of course, they need to have their authority, they need to have their budgets, and they need to be at the table in the discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move to our final speaker, Elisa Pereira Nunes.
Hello, everyone. I'm not going to come back on what have been said before about, involving citizens and local governments, because this has been said and I only have 3 minutes. But I would like to focus today on the fact that we are, as networks of local governments, pretty focused on, trying to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are also very focused on the 5th one, which is gender equality. And today, obviously, you know that the poorest regions of the world are the one being affected by climate change, but among those victims, women and children are the first ones, because climate change is not gender neutral, because of women's domestic and professional activities, because women are the ones in charge of agriculture work, sometimes water bringing, fuel collection, use. I'm not going to list everything today, we don't have the time, but we can't ignore that anymore. And we also know that women and children are 14 times more likely to die in natural catastrophes. 50 to 75% of girls are likely to be taken out of school. And we know that climate change brings crises which lead to violence towards women. So we could speak a lot about how women are victims, but also we need to talk about how they can be powerful figures, powerful representations. They shouldn't be reduced to this victim state, even if they are real victims of all these changes, but they have been major figures of change since forever. And their voices need to be heard now, today, locally and globally. And they need to be involved because they've always been efficient and critical actors of change for better, but for all too. So we need in this the northern countries, but also in the southern countries, we need direct involvement of women at local scales, but also at the table of negotiations like today's negotiations. And we need to involve them in the making decision process, but also to accelerate their inclusion, because as, for example, local representatives, when we include more women, we can also have different powers, and bringing girls to this kind of positions, also having models to identify to, is a key part of the solution. And obviously, if we locally and internationally use different levers, we will reach to this gender equality and fight against climate change at the same time, because it needs to be taken into account and work together. So regarding a few levers that we may use in our local governments, we have education programs. We need to support, to give visibility and to involve civil society to make decisions with us. We need to bring the voice of activists at places like this COP, and maybe also in this blue zone sometimes, probably. We need to find practical and concrete solutions to mitigate the impact of global warming, to adapt our cities, but also to adjust our way of life to the changes that are already affecting many, and obviously many women too. So we need to have climate change laws that are not considered punitive or exclusive. We need them to be inclusive, and we need to work at different levels to work fast, because time's up. And obviously we need to work with our partners abroad, not just locally, but as networks of local governments that I'm part of today. We need to work with our partners on those issues simultaneously. However, we won't be able to do all that if states don't help, don't support, don't fund those local initiatives. And this change needs also to be done with the citizens to make it efficient. And forgetting local actors, whether they're cities, private investors, civil society, and also women, forgetting all those local actors would be forgetting and denying a whole series of actions in the fight against climate change, and wasting precious time that, once again, we no longer have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Okay, I must congratulate all the panelists for keeping so well to time. I think we have time perhaps for one question, which I'm going to address to each of you in turn. And the question would be, we've heard about the contribution that local governments already made to tackling climate change. We've heard about the need for climate justice and leadership to be provided by local government. In moving to the next step, what do you think is the single obstacle that we must overcome? Or if there's one more point you would prefer to make, I'll give you the opportunity to do that. But it's effectively a minute each if you could do that. And I'll pass to Senator Outtakes first.
I noted very well your question. What was the question?
What do you think is the single obstacle that we face, the major obstacle that we face at the stage?
I underline what I said. I think that this moment we need more resources, because for retrofit, for example, for investment. I underline just that I said that I need that you need more resources at this moment. It's clear that we have to retrofit a lot of old buildings. We have to invest for mobility. We have to invest new system of energy production. We have, I think, we have to discuss with European Union, with the different country, maybe about the framework for the loan. You know, the 3%. We have the possibility to forget the 3% for COVID crisis. We need to forget the 3% for climate crisis too. And we need this money at this moment. And of course, we have to discuss with country and European Union more consistent between the different legislation. It's clear that we have to progress about this point.
I wouldn't say biggest obstacle, I would say biggest challenge is bringing our citizens with us on this road, because we are expecting a lot of change from them. We are expecting them to change their way of mobility, to change how they consume, what they eat, how much they buy, put down their cars, understand the bees in the city and all what it means to be green, and also to pay a higher price for it. Because we see some of the citizens demonstrating outside and demonstrating in our cities, but we have the majority of our citizens who are not there demonstrating for higher goals, but will face a very tough winter with skyrocketing energy prices. So having our mayors, bringing our citizens, having it understand and facing energy poverty, I think that is the biggest challenge.
I agree 100% with what you just said, the two of you. And I would add that maybe we need to build trust again, trust from citizens to their representatives nationally, but also at the European level and at the global level. We need to work maybe more horizontally with citizens, with local associations and local governments and national ones. Maybe states should also be more aware of what local governments are actually doing on the ground, because they are the ones at the closest to the populations, and they are the ones answering for actions. They are citizens go to see their local governments to ask for anything regarding state decisions, metropolises, and we don't always have the answers or the money to answer their needs. And finally, I think in many northern countries, we lack identification towards the ones who are suffering from those crises. So we need to bring those voices and to show that what happens to many of them now is also happening to us slowly, progressively, and we're going to be them one day if this is what makes people react and change. We need to find different ways to talk to them, to help them, to fund, and it can't be punitive, as I said. It has to be rewarding for all. So let's try this.
Thank you very much. I think that's taken us to the end of our session now. I can only thank all our panelists for rising to the difficult challenge of bringing these powerful messages to us in a very short period of time. And I think they did it very eloquently. So thank you very much again. We'll have a panel change now.
That would be fantastic. I can't hear you, sorry.
Just use that microphone.
Yeah, and what do I wear earphones to in order to hear the speakers though? I need to use earphones. Sorry?
Otherwise, you should be able to hear each other.
But what if I pass this here? I'll hear it because I'm next to it.
Yes. Nope, you're all ready to go.
I'm all ready to go. Okay. No, you didn't.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Excellent, excellent, awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to this next session. The next session is entitled Dialogue North, Global South, City to City Cooperation. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Francisco Reznikov, Deputy Mayor of Buenos Aires for International Relations, and Councillor Dandler, Deputy Mayor on Ecological Transition, Climate Change, Energy and Water from the City of Paris. My name's Councillor Claire Holland. I'm leader of Lambeth Council, that's Lambeth in London. And before I turn to my esteemed colleagues, I just want to explain in a few words about where I'm from in Lambeth. Now, Lambeth stretches from the River Thames to the south, and we are blessed with great opportunity in our borough. We have world-class cultural institutions such as the National Theatre, the BFI, the Young Vic and Old Vic, and world-class teaching hospitals. We are a very diverse borough. Portuguese is our second language, and we are proudly the home of Windrush, but we also have great challenges too. A third of our children live in poverty, and COVID has left us with rising unemployment, and we have a housing crisis like the rest of London. So when we were the first council in London to declare a climate emergency in January 2019, we were clear that we have to tackle inequality as we tackle the climate crisis. We know with climate change, the poorest will be hit the hardest and disproportionately. And so for us, tackling climate change goes hand in hand with reducing inequalities. Now, we are one of 32 London boroughs, and we work across with those other councils and the City of London and the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and our colleagues from across the country, and you've heard from some of them this morning. And that collaboration, that partnership working is invaluable to us, and we know it's essential to get to net zero. And I know our two brilliant speakers today have a lot of experience, not only in the amazing work that they're doing in their own cities, but in that city to city cooperation. And that's the focus of this dialogue. So Deputy Mayor Dandler, would you like to kick off? I understand that you want to say a few words first.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Reznikov, thanks a lot for this invitation. I'm really delighted to talk in this dialogue session and to meet you, Mr. Reznikov. Our cities are friends and cooperate on many projects. First, I am going to present our climate action in Paris. Then I will speak about how we cooperate with other cities in the world. In recent years, extreme weather, floods, droughts, heat waves, pollution peaks have proven to be a serious strain in our city. These events have clearly shown us that the climate emergency does not only concern future generations of our countries. We are already affected in Paris as all territories across the world. Paris hosted COP21 in 2015 and witnessed the signing by all the states, the signing of the first universal agreement on climate change. We carry the responsibility to lead by example the implementation of the main principles of the Paris Agreement in our city. By implementing 500 actions today, the climate plans lays out the path towards carbon neutrality by 2050 with a territory powered 100% by renewable energies. As Paris Deputy Mayor in charge of climate change, my role is to hasten the implementation of this plan while ensuring a just, resilient, and inclusive transition. To achieve local carbon neutrality, we have to halve energy demands of Paris in the next 30 years. It means, for example, to retrofit 1 million flat units and 50 million square meters of commercials. It represents a huge challenge in a patrimony city as Paris. It is also a social opportunity to protect vulnerable people. I was elected in the most popular district in the northeast of Paris, and I know how the poorest ones are the most affected by climate change effects and by energy poverty. Ecological transition must be socially fair. It's even an opportunity to reduce poverty by creating local jobs. In terms of energy, sobriety is the motto. The best energy is the one we don't use. This being said, to have zero local emission implies supplying Paris area by 100% of renewable energy sources, of which 20% produced locally. We invest massively in solar panels, geothermal solutions, heat recovery, and we are greening our district heating by 100% of renewable energy sources. We are working also on creating an energy facility to invest in Paris' close countryside area to develop renewable energy plants to provide green energy to Paris. It's also a way to develop rural economy by solidarity. Adaptation is the second pillar of our plan at the same level of priority than mitigation. Paris mean temperature has already increased by 2.3 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial era. Last September, we published a study documenting new Paris climate trends according to IPCC models. Paris mean temperature should increase by 4 degrees Celsius around year 2085. It means hotter and longer heat waves, more droughts, more stormy rains, and lots of consequences on population and infrastructure. This decade is decisive for adaptation. We will plant 170,000 trees in Paris. We will reopen a forgotten river in Paris called the Bièvre. We will ensure to have no Parisian farther away than 7 minutes of a cool island. We will remove asphalt of the sidewalks or squares, and we will get 40% of green and permeable spaces. Our action is not a top-down plan. It's a bottom-up and collaborative initiative. We created partnership with more than 75 major companies of Paris. We co-shared the governance with NGOs, companies, and citizens. For that, we developed a program called Paris Climate Volunteers, gathering now 29,000 people to act at home, in their family, or in their company. It is our mission. Nobody must be left behind. As the OCT of COP21, during which the Paris Agreement was adopted, Paris has a special role in making the voice of cities and subnational governments heard in the global climate struggle. Last year, as a celebration for the Paris Agreement 5th anniversary, the mayor, Anne Hidalgo, gathered numerous mayors from around the world at the Zero Carbon Forum. 138 cities endorsed Paris Declaration. In this declaration, cities commit to put climate action at the center of all urban decisions, making so to achieve climate neutrality. It is also a pledge to encourage national states to issue new ambitious climate contributions consistent with the Paris Agreement and to confirm their commitment to mobilize climate finance for less advanced countries. You have probably heard about the 15-minute city concept that we are implementing in Paris. The idea is to create neighborhoods where every essential residence needs are easily within reach in 15 minutes by bike or walking. We launched a project with the cities of Buenos Aires, Barcelona, Bogota, and Mexico to implement together the concept in our cities. Since 2019, we are conducting a project together with the city of Buenos Aires and the Inter-American Development Bank for the zero carbon transformation of the Casco Histórico, the historic center of Buenos Aires. Our objectives are working with Buenos Aires to transform the neighborhood's image, attract investors, and develop social housing. These are few examples among hundreds of how Paris cooperates with other cities in the world. I strongly believe this is precisely how we are going to win this struggle against climate change, with cooperation. This is the spirit of our climate action plan, and I say it's also the spirit of the Paris Agreement. Let's keep on being at the forefront of climate action. I believe in our collective power to implement locally the Paris Agreement. You can count on us. You can count on the mayor, Anne Hidalgo. You can trust Paris to continue the struggle against climate change. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Le. That was fascinating, and I know Paris is showing real leadership. I knew that about the leadership you were showing in Europe, but it's fantastic to hear about the leadership and the collaboration that you're doing and partnering with cities such as Buenos Aires. So turning to you, Deputy Mayor Reznikov, for you just heard your colleague about that city-to-city cooperation. What for you are the opportunities or the benefits of that city-to-city cooperation, and what are the barriers for you?
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me and to give me the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Buenos Aires and about city-to-city cooperation as well. So I was going to tell you a little bit precisely what city-to-city cooperation means to us, but I was inspired by many of the people who already talked at this event, and I would like to in a way, say, try to reflect on what has been said and how it applies to Buenos Aires, but also to city-to-city cooperation of Buenos Aires and many other cities in the world. So the first thing that I think emerged so far from this event is that the local governments have all of them have the capacity to deliver. And that's a key element that I think should not be underestimated. Cities in the last few decades have increased their capacities, have increased the quality of their public policy process, and have been able to incorporate more people to that process. And that applies to many areas of policy, but for sure for the climate policy agenda, climate change agenda in the cities. So much of what has been achieved in the climate change agenda in the last few years was because of city action. And I think this is very important, not only because of the climate change agenda, but also because it raised awareness and it raised confidence, both in politics and policy. And in this context, in which democracy is at risk, I think that's key. Recognizing the role of local governments, both in terms of democracy strengthening, but also in terms of the advancement of the climate change agenda, I think is key. And I could mention many different actions that the city has been taking, City of Buenos Aires, in the last few years. We incorporated 110 green public space in the last few years. We incorporated almost 300 kilometers of bike lanes, and we went from 0 to almost 400,000 bike trips a day. We developed the VRT system in the city, which improves the quality of the public transportation, but also reduce space for cars, which is a key element for a city such as Buenos Aires. And we have one of the largest pedestrian areas in the world. All the public lighting of the city is LED. So I could mention many different actions that are part of the climate change agenda, part of the climate action plan, which was approved last year and has the objective for the city to become carbon neutral by 2050. So in all those projects, cooperation is key. Paris has been a great partner of Buenos Aires in this agenda. We exchange a lot of practices, a lot of information. We are admirers of the 15-minute city concept and how Paris is developing it. We are trying to, in a way, copy much of what Paris has been done in the same way. But I could mention many different programs with many other cities in which city-to-city cooperation is key. So one thing that was said here before is that, I would put it in another way, but where many countries failed to cooperate, I could mention climate change, but I could also mention the pandemic, cities emerge as key actors cooperating with each other. And I think that's a key element of what can we achieve in the future of cities and in the future of the climate change agenda. So cooperation is key, and cities are key actors in this agenda. Not only between cities, I should add, but also with organizations such as development banks, international financial institutions. You see increasing cooperations between cities and these kind of organizations. Yesterday, I presented the climate change platform of the city of Buenos Aires, in which we present all the relevant information regarding climate change, the inventory, the GHG inventory, the climate action plan, all the indicators related to climate change in a platform which is open to the public and which allow both experts and citizens to understand what the city is doing. And that was developed with the CAF, with the Latin American Development Bank. So you see a lot of cooperations in these terms. But I would also like to add that this is not enough. It's necessary, but not enough. We should bring into the conversation the issue of finance. Finance is key for cities to fulfill all their plans in terms of climate action. And at the same way that we are fighting here at this COP to be included as actors, recognized as actors, I think the next logical step is to start talking how cities are going to finance their projects. Because I think if we don't do that, the divide between the global south, the cities of the global south agenda and the cities of the developed world agenda is going to increase. Let me end by putting an example of precisely what I'm trying to say. A few months ago, we received an invitation for a group of cities in the developed world to sign a pledge to disinvest from fossil fuels. So the idea was that pension funds of cities should disinvest from fossil fuels companies. And I mean, I totally agree with that. I think it's a great initiative, but cities such as Buenos Aires, which are not poor, do not have a pension fund to disinvest from. We are trying to figure it out how we're going to buy the next electric bus, or how are we going to build the next mile of the subway. So if we don't include the finance agenda in these discussions, we risk an increasing diverge between agendas and the climate change agenda at 2 speeds, one for cities in the global south and one for cities in the developing world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Reznikov. Absolutely, but that's a great note to end on. We're continuing the city-city cooperation, but absolutely not to forget the inequality, not only within our cities, but between our cities and between the north and the south. And for me, this is just the beginning of the conversation. I'm really excited to be here. And I think we all need to take away something and pledge what we're going to do. And I'm going to look for more city-to-city cooperation from my city to your cities with Sadiq Khair, the Mayor of London, who's now chair of C40. So thank you very much, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Can I get this mic? Hello, can you hear? Okay. Hi. Greetings. I know people are just starting to move around. My name is Matthew Baldwin. I'm from the European Commission. I have the honor to be working on a fabulous project to have 100 climate neutral cities across the EU by 2030. And I've been invited to say a few words as we start to come to the end of our reflections here at COP26. I came, quite frankly, expecting to be trying to push water uphill, to be trying to persuade cities on my hands and knees to look at this very onerous set of objectives and targets. I leave, frankly, overwhelmed by, again, what we've just been hearing, the enthusiasm, the determination of cities to take this forward, if you like, on behalf of their member states, to carry a large part of the burden of climate change mitigation, to benefit from the money for climate change adaptation, but to carry that work on their backs. Cities like we've been discussing in the last couple of weeks with the mayor of Mannheim, cities like Marseille, whom I had the chance to meet with yesterday. These are cities with the determination to get there by 2030, all the way to climate neutrality. And why? Not just because they're good guys, because they have figured out, they have realized the benefits that will flow to them, not just from participating in our wonderful project, but realizing the co-benefits of action against climate change, less congestion and noise in our cities, better air quality, lower energy bills, steps to producing the livable and lovable cities that I know all of you want to see. Citizens' engagement as an essential part of that, realizing the issues about equity and equality in our cities, learning from each other, as we've just heard. I think this pavilion has seen some of the most vivid learning experiences over the last couple of weeks. I want to thank everyone involved at LGMA for the marvelous conversations that I've been able to join in and learn from myself. But if I could just finish, I want to quote a mayor who's not here. I know he's gone home now to the Czech Republic, the mayor of Prague, who said yesterday that if the 19th century was the era of empires, and we know that worked out well, and if the 20th century was the era of member states with just a couple of global wars, the 21st century has the chance to be the era of cities. And in tackling this existential crisis we call climate change, which is what we're all about here in this strange city we've built here in Glasgow to discuss climate change, somewhere out there discussing the negotiations, in the context of the negotiations of the declaration, yesterday had the brilliant idea to remove the phrase subnational actors from the declaration as part of the relevance for change. I actually don't know the latest state of play on this declaration, but of all the ideas I've heard this week, I may say I think this must be among the most stupid, because thank you, there is no way this thing is going to get done without cities. As the mayor of Prague concluded, there is no way to win this fight against climate change, to make our citizens safe in adaptation, to deliver us in mitigation from the scourge of greenhouse gases without the centrality of cities. That's what I take away from here. I take away your energy, your enthusiasm, your spirit, and I thank you very, very much for having me as part of your discussions in the last couple of weeks. Thank you very much.
I believe that our speaker, Councillor Mina Arve from Turkey, is now here. Hi. Thank you. Good to see you. I'll pass on to you then. Thank you.
So hello, everyone. Good to see you and good to be here. I was hearing the closing remarks from the previous speaker that you have had a very good session and there's been a lot of inspiration and energy in this session. Unfortunately, I was not able to join you in the discussion earlier, but I was having a possibility to meet Mr. Secretary General of UN and came directly from there. And I was really happy about his leadership to invite cities and local governments to speak about these very important issues about the climate emergency, climate actions, and what cities can do together, what we can do within the UN framework, and how could we help him in his work as a UN Secretary General to get actually those goals, what we have set out loud, to be realized also. And we all who are working within the cities, we know that the cities are the ones who are actually delivering those goals, what the nations are promising to be saying, but not always achieving. And that's where we are on the, driving the boat. Just a few notes from the meeting I'd like to share with you was, I think, with 2 points which were very important. First of all, that he was inviting us and telling that cities are important, that we are doing the important work, and then he would like to have a direct discussion with the cities was I think very, very important for cities in general. First point that he was making was that cities should be much more involved also when preparing the COP, especially now preparing to go to COP27 to Egypt, and how we should strengthen the role of the cities in preparation of the COP meeting, and how can we wait from there. And the second point, actually, which I think is even more important, is that he was, we as a ICLEI, I'm in my capacity, I was there as my capacity as a ICLEI's vice president, proposing also to mechanism actually where we can discuss the climate emergency within the UN level, and he was taking the note of that at least there should be and could be somehow organized way to raise up the climate ambition, urge to climate emergency, and have a direct and frequent and direct conversations with the cities frameworks. So these were really how to say, positive remarks, and giving, at least for me, very much hope for the future, also strengthening the role of the cities. Mr. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, was also mentioning that the role of the cities is actually growing larger and larger, and there is a global responsibility also from the bigger cities to the cities in the world, and especially from the global north to the global south, is where we can actually do and help each other. And that's where the networks of cities are very strong and very, how to say, very concrete support within cities, and giving the example from and supporting the other cities who need to be encouraged in their leadership. And sometimes we all know that it's not very easy, and we need the support from our citizens. We need courage, and we need support from the political parties, and there we hopefully also would have support from the national governments, but that's not happening everywhere. So thank you. These remarks from my side, and yeah, let's keep going on.
Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting morning with lots of really good speakers talking about the importance of local government. Our role is devolved local government around the world in helping to mitigate the effects of climate change and working together in collaboration and with empowered local communities. Thank you very much for all the contributions today. Just leaves me to say now to follow this event, we're going to be serving very soon now, I hope, canapes, coffee, beer in this area, refreshments for everybody. So if we allow the room to be rearranged for tables to be put in here, we should be able to enjoy that very soon. So thank you very much. Thank you.